Hello, welcome to the Daily Bible Podcast. My name is William Hemsworth. Thank you so much for joining me for today's show. Hope everyone has been having a great week so far. Well, today we continue on in Matthew chapter 17, and we're going to look at verses 22 and 23 today. And these couple verses, Jesus predicts his death and resurrection a second time. And so again, those verses are Matthew chapter 17, verses 22 through 23, and those verses say, "As they were gathering in Galilee, Jesus said to them, 'The Son of Man is to be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him, and he will be raised on the third day.' And they were greatly distressed." So here Jesus is talking to his disciples, and this is the second time that Jesus predicts his passion. This is the second time he predicts his death and resurrection. The first time was in Matthew chapter 16, starting in verse 21. And this is right after Jesus tells Peter that he's going to be the rock, the foundation on what his church is going to be built. It's right after Jesus predicts his death. And Peter's like, no, Lord, may it not be so. And Jesus tells Peter, "Behind me, Satan, you're basically, I'm paraphrasing here, you're thinking about yourself and not the plan of God." And so here in this second one, they go from denial, like we see in chapter 16, to grief in chapter 17. Now the important thing here is that Jesus here also predicts his resurrection, because without the resurrection, as St. Paul says, we're still dead in our trespasses and sins. So, amen to that. So the disciples here only heard the first part of what Jesus was saying, and they became discouraged. Now, like the disciples, every now and then we get discouraged as well. So let's kind of wrap this around to how this affects us today. The disciples walked with Jesus. They ate with Jesus. And in the first century, the disciples were more than, they didn't just show up at the house, early on a Monday morning and wait to be taught. No, this was like a 24-hour-a-day event. If you remember at the beginning of the Gospel of Matthew, when Jesus is calling the disciples left what they had. They left their homes. They left their professions. They left their families to follow Jesus. It was an all-encompassing lifestyle. In first century Judaism, you were with your rabbi 24 hours a day. So if the disciples who ate with Jesus, they walked with Jesus, they heard Jesus' words with their own ears, sometimes were slow to understand what he was saying, it's only natural that there's going to be times where we also have a little bit, not issue, but we're slow to comprehend exactly what Jesus is trying to tell us to do. So sometimes we fall into this trap where I'm not getting it. What's wrong with my faith? What's wrong with me? Don't wear yourself out with that. Don't wear yourself out with that. We shouldn't get upset with ourselves for being slow to understand everything about Jesus. The disciples saw him, they saw his miracles, they saw everything he did. And yes, they grieved here, but you know what? Despite their questions and doubts, they believed. And so should we. We may be going through a hard time. The weight of the world may be crashing on our shoulders. Let's let Jesus carry us through. Let's believe. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Daily Bible Podcast. Thank you for joining me each and every day. Please, if you enjoy the show, I also have a few other podcasts. I'm doing a radio show titled Deep in Church History as well. I have a Bible Catholic show. And I also do Christian Media Review. That's a little slow getting going right now. But if you enjoy the show, if you feel led to support it, please visit my Patreon page at patreon.com/William Hemsworth. Other than that, guys, thank you for joining me each and every day. God bless you. Hope this show has helped you in some way. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Let's believe. Let's rely on Him to carry us through what we're going through. God bless you. Have a great day.